Welcome back to another live version of the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect, the Shepherd of Black Sheep. If you're here and you're not subscribed, please do subscribe before I begin. Also, if you like the video, please remember to like the video. Now, in this episode, I'm going to go over how most of you are holding narcissists all accountable, all wrong. And what happens with this is a narcissist does something problematic, and then the other person wants to hold them accountable. And how do they do that? Well, they bring up that problematic behavior. Maybe they bring up the fact that a narcissist lied. Maybe they bring up the fact that a narcissist cheated. Or they bring up the fact that they don't like how the narcissist is talking to them or how the narcissist talks to their friends and family. But then this is where people go off the rails because, of course, the narcissist does not agree with your assessment. And instead, they'll do the things that they'll do when they're allergic to accountability. Blame shift, play the victim, gaslight, flip the script, move the goalpost, deflect, dismiss, you name it, that's what they're going to do. And then the other people who are trying to hold them accountable, then they make this mistake. They continue trying to get the narcissist to see it their way. And they think, you just need to admit that you lied. You need to admit that you cheated. You need to admit that it's not good that you're talking to me like that, or fill in the blank with whatever it is. But of course, the narcissist just won't. And then the person trying to hold them accountable, they drive themselves crazy trying to get the narcissist to agree and admit they've done something wrong. But of course, that's not what the narcissist is going to do. And this is the problem. The problem with trying to hold a narcissist accountable like this is you're only going to drive yourself crazy. And ultimately, if you're with someone like this, there's not much you can do anyway. Because once someone's like this, a healthy partnership is not going to be happening with them. It's just not going to happen. Like, you can try, and it's only going to work as long as one person just does what they're told. And usually what that means is the narcissist just gets their way. They control the relationship, and then the other person does what they're told. And as long as that other person never speaks up, never says no, never speaks out, the relationship can go on for a while. Doesn't mean it's a healthy relationship. Doesn't mean that both people are respecting one another. It really just means that one person is disrespecting the other, and the other person's just not speaking up about it. And there's reasons why they don't speak up. Maybe they don't even recognize what they're seeing as abuse. Maybe they don't even recognize what they're seeing as disrespect. And the reasons for that would be maybe they had a narcissistic parent growing up that did all of the same things to the other parent. So this person, they just think this is normal. This is what love is supposed to look like. And I'm repeating that dynamic that I learned growing up. Which reminds me, as I was reading Cece's book, Show Up As Her, it's for women, but I've still learned a lot from it. She's coming on the show on Tuesday. And what I just said is something that she said in the book as well, which was we break patterns. We break the cycle of abuse when we stop repeating mindlessly what our parents told us as kids. We stop ourselves from just repeating the same things. That's how generational curses, that's how generational trauma can stop. When you just don't repeat what you heard or repeat back what your parents did to you. But the point of all this is when you're trying to hold the narcissist accountable like this, if they're going to do that routine of just never admitting it, it's like they say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And once you recognize this is how they are, the only thing left to do is enforce consequences. That's it. And what's the number one consequence to enforce? Walking away. Walking away and preferably going no contact. That's what you do. Now, it gets tricky when that isn't always possible. And then people ask, why wouldn't that be possible? Well, there's financial abuse going on sometimes. Sometimes there's a lease. Sometimes there's a marriage. Sometimes there's kids. There's other things that make it more complicated. But in those cases, especially in a co-parenting with a narcissist case, you're going to have to master one of the most difficult things. And that's being assertive and having boundaries and not getting sucked into their madness. Because when you have kids together, or maybe you work with a narcissist, you can't go no contact. You have to interact with them a little bit. And there's apps that help people with this. There's the Our Family Wizard app, and there's other apps like it that when people have to co parent with a narcissist, they use those tools. And sometimes they're enforced by the courts. They say, yeah, you have to use this app. So all of the back and forth is going to be recorded. Sure. And what I've seen happen with that is the narcissist will try to use that as a tool to make you look bad. They'll be very official and formal in that chat. But if they ever talk to you outside of that chat, it's mask off again because they think, oh, this isn't being recorded. I'm not under the microscope here, so I can act however I want. But ultimately, going no contact, that's your consequence. Now, in a co-parenting situation, it's a little bit different. Consequences can look many ways, though. But it really just depends. George, what's shaking? Tejas, is that how you pronounce your name? Hello there, too. So consequences will look different ways for different situations. And as I'm thinking about it, even if it's a family situation, I mean, what I would recommend is emotionally disengage. If you can't go no contact, emotionally disengaging, that is the consequence. And I wouldn't risk having a relationship with depth with them anymore. That's how I play it in my own life. When there's people that I can't go no contact with for whatever reason, I just don't have a relationship with depth with them anymore. I keep it close to the vest. I don't share personal things about myself. I don't get vulnerable with them anymore. It's more of a shallow relationship. And that's the consequence. Because ultimately, again, some of those situations, what happens is that really annoys me. They make mountains out of molehills. And if you were to ever try to call that out, it just would never work. They'll just keep on fighting back, fighting back, fighting back. They'll never admit it. They'll just keep on saying this is how it needs to be done. And they are relentless when they don't give up. It's completely obnoxious. But you know what I'm talking about out there if you've had to deal with people like this. They just don't give up. You could call them out about something. Why are you making such a big deal about this? And they'll just go on and on and on and on. And they just don't stop. They need to get the last word in. And when we're dealing with someone like that, we have to act accordingly. We got to step back. I made that video the other day about the next time you're in an argument, I want you to take a big step back and you ask yourself, was this conversation, did it feel like a battle from the start? Did it feel like they were being antagonistic and hostile for no reason? Was there a bad energy from the beginning? And I see this a lot online. As a creator, there's people that talk to me in comment sections. And here's a good example of it. I made a post the other day about how one of the most powerful things a man can do for a woman is not match her emotions, but show up in a playful and fun way and bring that woman out of her bad mood into a better mood. And you would think, oh yeah, what's so bad about that? Well, of course, some people found a way to have a problem with it. And there was a person that said, oh, you're just talking about antiquated and ridiculous gender roles and gender norms. Like, what are you talking about? I told them they were being ridiculous and being black and white. And they said, no, you're acting like women are just fragile and any man who likes this is insecure. I'm like, the frick are you talking about? And this was instantly, though. Instantly, I went into that antagonistic, bad mojo. And again, once you know that, you proceed at your own risk. And sometimes I will proceed anyway because more engagement is better for the algorithm. So I'll go break my rules sometimes for that. But it's never because I actually get this person to agree with me. If anything, it's just so the other people who follow me can see what I think about it. But I know better than to think, oh yeah, I'm going to get this person to agree. I'm going to get her out of this insanity mindset and get her to agree with me. And I basically called her out. I said, you're the definition of a wounded feminine, because If all it takes is hearing something about man or woman and you get completely triggered by that, you get completely bothered by that, that's touching on a pain point in you somewhere. And it would be one thing if I was actually being offensive or if I was actually being antagonistic, but that's not what was going on. It was really just, yeah, in any relationship, people support one another. A man can support a woman, and sometimes the woman's there to support a man. I don't think there's any problems with that, but this woman absolutely thought so. Yeah, I mean, being playful is one of the strongest things you can do because sometimes a woman will actually lose respect for you if you get sucked into her emotional state, and she might actually consider you weaker when that happens. And that's something that the guys that I think, especially when they're younger, and especially if they're dealing with a lot of like women in their lives, they've been brought up by women. That's one of the things they struggle with is they get sucked into that emotion. But that's not necessarily what the woman always needs from you. Now, there are times for meeting her emotional state and being more compassionate and empathetic, but then there's also times for being more fun and playful. And there's other times for that. And that's really what she wants. Being socially calibrated is knowing which is which. But for the people that want to distort what I'm saying and misinterpret and pull it to black and white extremes, they're going to give me the least charitable interpretation when I say that. And they'll say, oh, no, you're just talking about antiquated things and you're acting like women are just babies. It's like, no, it's like this is just reality. It's reality that this is what it can be like sometimes. And the only people who don't admit that are usually, oh, and then they also said the only women who would want that are women who have not integrated their masculine. It's like integrating your masculine does not mean all of a sudden you're a superhuman. No, you'll still need support sometimes. You'll still go through emotions. You still have a cycle. So it's like, what the hell are you talking about? I think that's my fawning response sometimes. Which one? What is your fawning response? And yes, I absolutely agree, George. That's a great way to disarm them. If you have a strong sense of your own reality and you can be playful and fun, that's a powerful thing. And sometimes that is absolutely the best medicine, along with laughter. Laughter and that, they're the best medicine, really. It would be nice, assertive, and set clear boundaries. What would be nice? A fawning response is a people-pleasing response, basically. And anyone who is struggling with that, what I would say to them is, why? You have to ask yourself some questions. Okay, which topics do I struggle with this the most in? Is there specific things I struggled to say no to? Are there specific people I struggle to say no to? Are there certain situations? What is it? And then when you figure it out, what story are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself they'll hate you if you say no? Are you telling yourself they'll abandon you if you say no? Are you telling yourself that this is who I am? I'm the helper. I'm the person that helps people out. And so I have to continue doing that. It just depends. It depends on the person. Fawning is a people-pleasing response. Marcella and I went over that too. But it wasn't always considered that. It used to just be called people-pleasing. But they've considered it now part of a fawning. So basically, fawning is when you're just in agreement. You agree to disarm. You agree just to go along with things, to keep the peace, because maybe if you didn't do that when you were growing up, there was abuse and other nonsense that came your way. I mean, it's not good, right? So it's one of those things that, yeah, that's how it was, but there's definitely a road forward where you got to say, okay, what situations am I doing that in? What kinds of things bring that up in me? And how do I get through it myself? And a big part of it really is self-worth. When you believe, okay, I have enough belief in myself to put myself first. Like I'm worth it. I have the self-respect. And the only people that aren't going to appreciate that are people that are not good for me. Anyone who gets upset when we have a boundary, That's just more evidence the boundary was needed. Yeah, that's what it is. Going along to get along, going along to keep the peace. Angela, hello, Angela. You agree with your narcissistic parents when you worship your bad parents. Mm, trying to understand what that means. You agree with your narcissistic parents when you worship your bad parents. What do you mean by that? Because I mean, narcissistic parents are basically bad parents. I'm a little confused by that one. Um, but back to the consequences and accountability part, enforcing the consequences. And maybe if that means having an emotionally shallow relationship with someone, maybe that's what it means. Maybe it means limiting their access to you. Oh, we're just not going to be able to talk that long. And this is something I see a lot with parents, right? Where there are people, especially women sometimes, they don't want to cut off a parent. And this happens to dudes too. I shouldn't say just women. But someone doesn't want to cut off a parent. They don't want to cut them off completely. But that's where boundaries come into play. And they'll say, okay, I'm only going to talk to you X amount of times per week. Or I'm only going to talk to you once a day for X amount of time. And then you have to follow through. Because sometimes I see these situations where a parent is monopolizing all of the kids' time. And they'll talk to their kids for hours a day. And especially when it's a son and the mother is doing that to him, I think to myself, especially when the kid's older, like, no, like you're robbing this kid of his life. You shouldn't be, when you're past 20, you probably shouldn't be speaking to your mother for 2 hours a day on the phone. Like there's something not quite right with that. That's too close for comfort relationship, if you ask me. Now, I'm sure that might upset some people. They'll say, no, everyone should love their mother. Of course they should love their mother. But I'm also saying there has to be boundaries in there somewhere too. And as a man, how are you supposed to meet another woman if you're talking to your mother for 2 hours a day every day? I mean, that she's filling a role in your life at that point. And if you were to ever even try to have a relationship, there would be a massive conflict because now all of a sudden, the mother's not going to be able to talk to you 2 hours a day anymore. And if she does, then the girlfriend's not going to like it. And then there's going to be a conflict. And then that guy is going to be in the middle and it's going to be up to him to figure something out. That's a whole video right there. That's exactly right, George. Angela says, you are obedient blindly if you think that your narcissistic parents are your God. Yeah, of course not. Of course they're not your God. I mean, they'll act like they are. They'll act like narcissistic parents love to say things such as, it's good to be the king, it's good to be the queen, but they're not really being ironic when they say it. They're actually serious. Or do as I say, not as I do, or because I said so. Those are their favorite responses a lot of times. And back then, though, too, I look back at my upbringing, there's just people just didn't know back then. There was a lot of not so good parents back then because a lot of them were just blindly repeating what their parents did to them. And in some cases, that wasn't so bad. And then in other cases, it was actually pretty bad. And the curses just got passed down further. The biggest thing now, from where I sit today, and granted, like my parents, they had 4 kids already by the time they were my age. And I factor that in too, because if I would have started having kids when my parents had kids, I was so much more immature 15 years ago. So I could only imagine the blunders I would have made. So in that light, it kind of helps me to take it easy on them a little bit. But again, that's not to excuse anything. It's not to say, yes, it was perfect. They were allowed to do that. No, absolutely not. It was just different. Like it was a different time. And that's one of those things that's helped me to let go of resentment. Yes. I mean, that's one of the ways that I've moved on from it. It's just understanding that, yeah, they didn't know what they didn't know. And they were super young. And like I said, if I had kids at their age, I have no idea what I would have done. And then maybe I would have been the bad guy in someone's story if I had kids when I was 25. But again, my problems were different back then. Like I was just coming out of an addiction. And if anything, I was too much of a nice guy. So I had a different problem. I was great with kids. It was more the women that didn't like me. Because back then, I mean, younger people, it's usually the bad boys that get the women when they're younger. And they have kids with them a lot of times. And a lot of times that's how all the single mothers are created and single parents. And it's the good dudes, or just the guys who are nice that aren't confident enough, I should say. Those are the guys that strike out. Times were different back then. There was more community, easier to raise multiple kids. Oh, for sure. Like I said, my parents had 4 kids, and my mom did not work for most of that. And that's not because we were wealthy. She probably should have been working, but it was still possible with just one income. And that's just not going to happen these days unless that one income is a fortune. Jan Campbell says, people need to move on from narc relationships. Go, I can't understand that. Gray Rock Ghost. Of course, but a lot of people that are here, they just don't, they're first understanding it now, right? They didn't understand the manipulation tactics before. And these are their aha moments, or the PBSE, as I would call it, the post-BS epiphanies. When they didn't understand narcissistic abuse, coercive control, trauma bonds, they were in the dark. And then they find channels like this, or my Facebook page, or my Instagram page, or my TikTok page, and then they learn it for the first time. And so they get these aha moments, the PBSEs. And yeah, I don't recommend people watch this stuff forever. There's a time where you're obsessed with it in the beginning because it's the most validating thing you've ever heard for ages. And you get obsessed with it. But eventually you got to take a look at your own side of the street too. I don't tell people to do that right away, but eventually. And you learn, okay, what can I learn from the situation? Is there anything I would have done differently if the same thing happened again in the future? And that's a good question to ask yourself, because people get very sensitive to victim blaming. And that's not what that is. You can look at your side of the street and learn from the situation and still understand it's not your fault. Angela says, narcissistic parents want to tell you what to think, what to feel, and what to do. No compassion for them. Understandably so. I call that WTF gaslighting. When they tell you what you want, what you think, what you feel, WTF. What the fuck? Jan says, narcs can't help it. It's all about control. Yes. If you had to boil everything a narcissist does to one or two things, it's control and getting what they want. That's it. And when you put it through that lens, it makes sense. Get support, and you need to start over. My narc was a doctor. It's crazy making crap. They only want to look good, smell good out in public, but in 4 walls, behind 4 walls, it's crazy making. Yes. They will be a completely different person behind closed doors a lot of times than they will be in public. That's for sure. So in terms of the consequences, though, again, if you're able to, you're not tied to them in any way, you go no contact. Part of going no contact is blocking them on everything. And there's reasons, though, people don't go no contact. And that's the things that people have to watch out for. A big one is they kind of want to show the narcissist how well they're doing. They want to say, see, I'm doing so great. But the problem with that is just the fact that you want to show them, that shows you still care a little bit about what they think. The way to disempower a narcissist is to not care what they think at all anymore. And when you don't care what they think at all, your actions are going to look different. But the actions of caring what they think is wanting to show them. Because why else would you want to show them unless you care what they think? So that's a trap. It's part of being subscribed to their distorted version of reality still. You still care. And when you care what they think, now You've given them a little bit of power over you, because if you can get enjoyment from showing off to them, now they can also hurt you by doing something or saying something too. That's another thing to watch out for. Deb, what's shaking? Remember, anything you say to the narcissist can and will be used against you. Did you see I wrote that the other day? It's true. It's like a reverse arrest. Angela says, thank you for being a light in a dark narcissistic world, Jared. You got it, Angela. That's my plan here. To be a shepherd of black sheep and a wizard, and the wizard of radical self-respect. I'm also trying to figure out the best ways to build more community with the black sheep community, whether I want to do something on school or something on Substack or a private Facebook group. I've done stuff on Telegram before, but it was too far removed. Jan says, DB, narc have a file cabinet to use against you? What does that mean? DB. Deadbeat? File cabinet. I mean, they'll do anything. They'll weaponize anything against you. There's no limit to what will try. They'll try to throw anything against you, including your kids together. They'll try to use them as pawns. And back to the holding accountable part too. And part of the reason why people do it all wrong is they're subscribed. They're subscribed to the narcissist distorted version of reality. And it's really important to them that the narcissist agrees with them. And that's how those conversations can become so circular, because the narcissist will do anything but agree. And I had an interaction with someone like this today where it got me thinking about some things, because one of the things that's really helped me, a mindset trick, is when something gives me a jolt, when I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, I ask myself, why? Why do I feel this way? And what can I learn from this situation? And this was happening today, where this person was giving me all of these least charitable interpretations of everything I said. And they were pulling it to these black and white extremes. And honestly, it was because I posted about Ozzy, and they were telling me, you don't know what you're talking about. They said, you must not understand narcissistic abuse if you're going to talk about Ozzy. You must not understand their tactics because you're worshiping celebrities. And I was like, what? I posted about Ozzy? That means I'm worshiping celebrities? And that's what they were saying. And they say, I question how well you understand this if you're going to enable their abuse to continue. I'm like, what? Like, me posting about them is enabling them? Like, yeah, you're simping for them and you're a part of celebrity worship. I'm like, dude, just Ozzy died. A lot of people liked his music. It doesn't mean they know Ozzy in real life. It doesn't mean they know Sharon Osbourne in real life. And I'm sure, maybe even Sharon more so, she's probably done some shady things. But on the day of Ozzy's funeral, I just didn't think it was the right time to be ripping her a new one for that. I was posting about just the sadness of it all. Let's see. Just say, really, oh, that's nice. They, the narc, wants a reaction from you. Don't react. Yep. Do not jade. Justify, argue, defend, or explain. And so why did I even bring this up? Oh, that's why it was. And it got me thinking. It was like, as she kept on twisting and distorting, giving me these least charitable interpretations, exaggerating everything I said, if she were to actually give me approval in that moment, I was thinking, you know what? It would probably feel good to get her to finally like validate, as opposed to twist and distort and give all of these least charitable interpretations, because it's annoying, right? It's annoying, but that's the problem, right? The fact that you think it's annoying, it makes a lot of people want their approval even more. And that's why they continue to try to get it. But the wisdom is knowing, no, once that's happened, abort, get out of there. Do not jade anymore. Practice gray rock. Don't explain yourself to them, and keep it moving. Deb says, what I know after years of unfortunate living with a cold, cruel crap for brains, shit for brains. DR, hope you're doing well and moved on. Deb's doing well, yeah. Angela says, narcissists always attack you if you don't accept a reality where they are perfect and superior. They'll attack you even if you just don't agree with them. So this person was saying to me, you're worshiping celebrities because you posted about Ozzy's death, and you're enabling Sharon's abuse to continue. I'm like, what? So this woman was all bent out of shape because Sharon apparently has screwed over a lot of musicians behind the scenes. Sure, I'm not denying that happened. And if I were to do a little digging on it, maybe I would make a video about that one day. But considering most people aren't familiar with that because they're not involved in the business, they were all mad instantly that people didn't know that. It's like, how do you expect all of us to know that? And then here you are firing off at the mouth instantly, being antagonistic, being hostile, telling people they're simping. You must not know narcissism because you posted about it. And it's like, what? But those are all the false accusations and the jabs that make people want to explain themselves and make people want to jump through their hoops. But that's just not the right thing to do. I mean, I think some of it's learned. I think some of it is just part of their impaired empathy from birth. It's just who they are. And then that's what they do. And they all do some of the same things. And that's why I know the patterns so well, because so many of them do variations of the same thing. Like, and it's a crazy making conversation. And this other woman called this person out on my post too, and rightfully so. Because this woman, she was ripping this other woman too. Like instantly calling her names, just all sorts of stuff. It was insane. And she was slightly nicer to me because it was my page, but then not really. Not really. She was still accusing me of all sorts of things. And again, if I was doing my best, I just don't even have the conversation. Because once you realize someone's like that, there's just no use. There's no use. Deb says, when I started saying nope, sure he hated me more, so shut the fuck up. I wanted him to hurry up on and divorce me. And he ended up doing it, right? Which was good. Usually, like we said yesterday, they'll want to do the reverse discard and make you do it. But he ended up doing it. Jan says, it was hard, no contact. I worked in the narc stocks office. It was money, cars, houses, trips, trap. That's another one of those tough situations because you can't go no contact. You worked in the office. So then the opportunity becomes, okay, how do I deal with this in a way that I don't let this person drive me insane? So we have an opportunity to work on it. Oh, how do I work on my emotional self-control? How do I work on Grey Rock? How do I work on Biff? Brief, informative, friendly, and firm. How do I work on Yellow Rock? Do I see them as an emotional 4-year-old? Do I see them as a malfunctioning robot? Do I just try to go least amount of contact necessary? All of those things. George says, women aren't kind to each other, especially professionally. Yes, that's true. It's wild. Like in some ways, women are on team women, and then other times, not so much at all. And some women can be very mean. And honestly, sometimes the prettier the woman, the more they get away with. And because, guys are nice to them. Women usually don't like them, but they don't care. And those women can be very mean. Jan says they will get you in the end, never unmask them. Yeah, I mean, once you figure out what they are, you don't need to call them a narcissist. You don't, unless it's for a court or something like that. Like, I wouldn't recommend it. The best thing to do is just act accordingly. Once you figure out what they are, it's going to do you no good to call them a narcissist. It's just, they're going to disagree, and they'll probably call you one. What to do if they are pretty and mean? Walk away is my suggestion, because they can be something else. And I mean, and that's what happens. Guys in the relationship world, especially when they're pretty, they get attracted to them. And then they'll start jumping through their hoops, and it's just like, stop. Men mostly are, especially when it comes to pretty women. A lot of men are complete pushovers when it comes to women. And the more attractive they are, the more true it is. And I've had a joke before: the prettier the woman is, the more IQ points the dude drops in her presence. Angela says, narcissists always play the victim. They want to take advantage of your empathy as a normal human being. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was talking about this yesterday too. A while ago, I interviewed this ex-hippie, our former hippie, I should say, and he lived in a commune. And he said on the commune, they were really into love, light, happiness, empathy, understanding, compassion. And they would try to extend that to everyone, but they learned a valuable lesson. That was fine as long as everyone else was also that way. But the second someone was not that way, and they were a predator, and they wanted to exploit and manipulate, then those people on the commune were sitting ducks for the manipulators and the toxic people and the people that wanted to exploit them. So there's a valuable lesson there. I'm all for people being loving, caring, understanding, having empathy. But for every aspect you have of those, you got to have an equal amount of assertiveness, boundaries, and wisdom. Because if you don't, you're going to get taken advantage of. And we see that all of the time in this space. People that gave endless second chances. They were very empathetic, very understanding. They would defend, excuse, explain, rationalize the narcissist behavior. And then what would happen? They would just get taken advantage of for their trouble. And the narcissist or whomever would continue cheating, continue lying, continue being abusive, continue being disrespectful. And then before that other person knew it, they're in a trauma bond with them. They can't do anything right anymore. They're always guilty of something. The coercive control is off the charts. They're chasing scraps of love bombing. They're chasing and clinging on to the intermittent rewards, and it's just a nightmare. Alex, what's shaking? Use your library for meetings. That's a good one. I like that. I've done some interviews in the library, but that was the lesson, right? If you're going to be empathetic, compassionate, and understanding, you also got to have assertiveness, boundaries, and wisdom. Got to have both. And in terms of the accountability part, again, we went over some of the things when you can't go no contact, limiting the contact, limiting their access to you. There's time boundaries with it too. Okay, we're only going to talk for this long, or we're not going to talk about certain subjects. That's a good one too to go over, whether it's a co-parent or a family member or a narcissistic person in the workplace. Especially in the workplace, if they want to pull you into very personal conversations, no, like this is the workplace. We're not going to talk about those kinds of personal things. That's the rule or boundary. Deb says, once you S them, you cannot un-S them again. I just say no. I assume that means sex. Is that what that means? I couldn't tell you. Evil. I mean, Dr. Salerno and I, we talked about that in my Is There a Spiritual Component to Narcissism video. That was actually the most popular video I did with him, was that video. And also, I'm not sure if I said this, but Dr. Salerno is going to be in this new Ted Bundy documentary. He's going to be an expert, a professional testimonial. And when he comes on next, it'll be after that show has come out. And I looked it up today. That show is coming out August 7th. All the episodes are coming out at once. So it'll be something for people to check out. Wolves in sheep clothing. And that's why I'm a shepherd of black sheep, to protect the shepherd, to protect the black sheep from all the wolves in sheep clothing, because they are certainly out there. But those are the ways, basically, to enforce consequences, right? There's many versions of it, but that's how you do it. You don't wait for them to agree with you. You don't wait for them to admit they were wrong. You don't wait for them to admit you were right. No, that's just not how it goes with them. Because if that's how it went with them, they probably wouldn't be a narcissist, for one. And it would be more likely you could have a healthy relationship with them. But even emotionally immature people, they can struggle with this too. Angela says, no contact with narcissistic parents who want to know and control all the details of your life. Yeah, I would not like that one bit. I'd made a video about how people that had a narcissistic parent, they really dislike anything that reminds them of being controlled. And God knows that's me. I hate to be controlled. And I've gone so long now without working a normal job that I don't even know how the hell I would go back and work one at this point if I ever had to. I don't do well being told what to do anymore. And especially since I haven't had to deal with it for a while, yeah, it would be a nightmare for me going back. Jan says, Sharon Osbourne was in for helping her husband. She was a good wife. Yeah, I mean, that's what I saw. Ozzy always gave her tons of credit. The people that were ripping Sharon Osbourne, they're just upset at how she was treating other musicians, apparently. But the rest of us don't know that behind the scenes stuff. I mean, how can we know? Teja says, sometimes they are nice and sometimes they are mean. They control the dynamic. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the intermittent rewards right there. Hot, cold, hot, cold. The wound soothe cycle. That's also what they call it too. But that's the other thing. When they wound, it makes the soothing that much more enjoyable. And some of that is part of human nature, right? Where this is what people learn in, say, The Art of Seduction or the 48 Laws of Power. People will not enjoy the light unless they've experienced some dark. And people would say, no, that's not true. Well, for a lot of people, it's absolutely true. And their actions prove it. So it's one of those things that narcissists have going in their favor in a way that it makes people addicted. The wound soothe cycle is addicting. If you've been wounded by them, their approval, even if you're not in a trauma bond per se, it feels more worthwhile. And I know this because I was noticing this in myself today. I was like, oh yeah, it would actually be like soothing for this person to agree. But that's the problem. Just the fact that she was being so disagreeable and antagonistic that it would have been soothing for her to agree. That's how the addiction's born. That's the beginnings of, if you keep on doing that, you're walking down trauma bond lane. You're in trauma bond lane, and before you know it, you're subscribed to that person's reality. And that's why I say practicing radical self-respect. Those are the guardrails, because once you see it, you can't willingly walk through that disrespect and be okay with yourself, because they'll force you. They're going to force you to disrespect yourself. Of course, yes. He was a complete addict for a while. So you could also argue that was an enabler-addict relationship, a codependent relationship. There's all sorts of things you could say. But perhaps it was more of a business arrangement. I don't know. But I think they also loved each other there too. It was one of those things where it didn't look like it should work, but for them it worked. And again, and that's not to say anything about how she might have screwed people over in the music industry. I'm sure she did. Charles Manson was a psycho. Have you ever seen Once Upon a Time in what's it called? Once Upon a Time in LA. I can't remember what it is, but it's all about that. Sharon Tate. Can you believe her? Having that happen to her in the late 60s, helter skelter. Charles Manson, though, on a side note, he was involved with the FBI, and they were doing some mind control experiments back then. They were toying around with acid and its effects on people. Pretty interesting stuff. And that's also what Manson was doing to his followers. What I heard what he would do is they would all take acid together. Manson would take a lower dose, and then he would reenact the crucifixion of Christ while they were all on acid. And this is one of the ways that he would get them deeper under his spell. And he got those people so far under his spell that they committed murder on his behalf. Yes, narcs are whiners. They're antagonistic whiners. Wow is me. It's everyone's fault. Watch that when you met that behavior. Yeah. If they don't have everything go their way, they'll be very whiny and complain. And it's just going to be obnoxious. So how do we handle that? I would say once you know someone's like that, I'm limiting my contact and I emotionally close off from people like that. I just don't deal with it. And maybe there's something I'm missing by doing that, but that's my go-to. I just cut off. I cut off, or if I can't go no contact, I emotionally cut off. And that's what I do. Cause I just don't tolerate it. I'm the kind of person that I either want to be all in with you or I'm not in with you at all. It's better to have 4 quarters than a 100 pennies kind of guy. Oh, I'm sure he might have been a psychopath. Charles Manson was probably a psychopath. Oh, what? So he was a psychopath. He was also a cult leader. And I don't know if those women have gotten out of jail yet. And I think Charles Manson died, didn't he? I'm not sure about that. What's your question, Deb? What are you curious about? Yeah, but he's absolutely a snake. You got to watch out for him. And there's many versions of that, though. I would say there's all sorts of cults generally. And here's the thing. Oh, yeah, Marilyn Manson, yeah. I mean, back then, before social media, people were able to get away with so much more. Because I think people take it for granted now sometimes. But the news that we get it so fast. It's all on our Facebook streams or whatever news that we watch. Everything's like, boom, everyone knows. Like there's no secrets anymore. And I think Tim Dillon was talking about this the other day. He had said, back in the day, you went to parties to meet people. But now you don't even need to do that anymore. You can just be introduced online. Oh yeah, here's their Instagram handle. Here's their X account. Oh, you can talk that way. Where before, you had to meet these people in person a lot of times. And now that big element is missing. Oh, we did? Yeah, I wasn't sure. Didn't get much coverage then, did it? Ellie, what's shaking? What do you mean a gray place with an arc, Tejas? A place where you're not all in with them, but you're not all out? I mean, you can have a limited depth relationship, I think. That's what I would say. You can have a limited depth relationship. But here's my problem with the narcissistic people. There's versions of not trusting them. So there's not trusting what they say. And then there's not trusting them because they're not emotionally safe. And that's a harder one to come back from. And even the ones that haven't directly lied to me, that's not even the issue. The issue more is I don't trust them to be emotionally safe. And if I don't trust you to be emotionally safe, there's no coming back from that. Because most people, once I put them in that box, that's it. You're in the box. It's like I made the video, the narcissist penalty box. That's where they are. That's where they stay. And I would have to see a lot of unchanged or of changed behavior and changed energy for that matter to even think about getting them out of that box. And here's the other part. I don't even give them the chance to either. Now, in some of the ones that I'm not no contact with, they do have a chance, but they don't. The ones that I'm no contact with, they still find a way to mess it up. So it just proves to me, yeah, this is why I don't talk to you, because you just can't handle it. You're not emotionally safe. And once someone's not emotionally safe, I mean, you're dead to me. They're dead to me. I mean, you can do it, but it's like, why would you want to, right? I'm an all or nothing kind of guy, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. Psalms, that's a good one. He's verbally attacking my daughter to get a reaction from me. How low will he get? How can I defend her without sinking to his level? Well, it sounds like he's trying to use your daughter as a pawn and weaponizing her against you. What did he say to her? Do you still live together, or is it more of a co-parenting situation? You have to throw away good things with bad behavior, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Once they're that far gone, though, it's tough. Hello from Australia. I saw you comment on one of my things today. What, why, and whose. I forget what it was, but I remember seeing your avatar. And that's very correct, George. Once there's no depth, there's nothing. There's no genuine intimacy anymore. There's no safety, and there's no connection, right? Once there's no emotional safety, the connection's done. Like there's no coming back from it. And it just is what it is. But I'm a big advocate of it's better to have a few close people than many shallow relationships. But that's just me. People can decide for themselves. Have her read your research online to prove what's wrong with this thinking. That's a good suggestion. That's a good suggestion. You can watch my interview with Chantel Contarines. We went over all of the co-parenting related dynamics. So your daughter's 27 and you're still together with him. What did he say to her? Because she's an adult. I mean, 27 is an adult. Does she still live at home or is she on her own? Exactly, George. It was my son that gambled 1 million of my money while he had a pregnant partner. That's out of control. Especially with a pregnant partner. So he's basically got a gambling addiction. A process addiction is what they're called. They're difficult to break. So pornography and gambling, they're considered process addictions. Not easy to break. Because especially with porn, there's no money. There's no money. You can just go on your phone. The psalm says she's here because her husband left her and my 2 grandchildren, 1 and 3 years old. Husband is a bully. Ugh. So she's basically, that guy sounds a little narcissistic, her ex. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the interviews with Dr. Solano. He's coming back on. He's actually going to be in a documentary about Ted Bundy. And he's giving an expert opinion. That it's going to be on Hulu. August 7th it comes out. But a week after that, he's coming on the show, and we'll probably talk about that. We'll talk about that, and then we'll see what else we talk about. Still 4 months now. So what does he say to her though? What does your husband say to her? That's what I would be curious about. I mean, basically, what I would ultimately say. Now, I don't know how your husband would handle this, but I would say no. Like, don't talk to her like that. But ideally, your daughter would stand up for herself too, because she's old enough to do that now. I'm 27 years old. Who do you think you are to talk to me like that? Yeah, it should be good times. So that's going to be August 15th. So that will be uploaded a little after that. Cece's next Tuesday. She did actually agree. I don't know if you remember me talking about that yesterday, but she's coming on Tuesday, which will be cool. And so many things in her book, they're stage 2 and stage 3 of healing concepts. And I think a lot of women would really benefit from learning from her too. And she's better. She's better than these guys that just pander to women. And there's plenty of those out there. So ideally, Sam, in the 27-year-old, your daughter would stand up for herself. But in the meantime, I would just say, hey, that's not cool. That's a good way to be assertive and say, no, not cool. Psalm says, I appreciate that, George. Psalm says, I need suggestions on how to deal with this tactic he's using. He belittles her, criticizes her, her appearance, she cries, feels she's in the way. So he's being a dick, is what I would say. If he's belittling and criticizing her to the point that she's crying, he's being a dick. And to which I would say, it sounds like a couple things are going on. Your daughter doesn't see it for what it is, or maybe she doesn't have like the assertiveness to stick her neck out, perhaps. I don't know. But there are some women, there's certainly women that would not tolerate that for a second. I mean, and what would you say? I would say, like, why are you belittling her? Why are you criticizing her like that? I mean, and here's the thing, though. If your husband is narcissistic, I can already tell you how this is going to go. That's the name of this video. Holding people accountable all wrong. Well, if you confront him on it, you're belittling her. You're criticizing her. You're being a jerk. Why are you doing that? He's going to just say some nonsense. He's not going to agree. He might blame you. He might blame her. He might play the victim. He might rage or have some sort of big emotional reaction, but he's not going to agree. He's not going to validate your perception of reality. So then what? Consequences. That's the only thing they'll respond to is consequences. And so what a consequence looks like for you in your situation, I'm not sure. But that's something that maybe a one-on-one consultation would be helpful for you. And if you email me, perhaps we can set one of those up. You seem like a good candidate for that. Yes, the narcissist is always looking for extra relationships. As I said, they're allergic to fidelity too. All relationships with narcissists are open relationships. The problem is only one person knows it, the narcissist. What, why, and whose says, you have to love yourself to offset the devaluing, trust your own judgment. Very well said. That's why when we practice radical self-respect, we would just never deal with that. So if I was your daughter, this is what I would do. I would emotionally close off from your husband and I would go least amount of contact necessary, and I just wouldn't deal with him at all. Because once someone's a dick like that, you're dead to me. And then maybe as a guy, it's easier for me to say that, but that's how I would see it. I'm like, no, I don't play that. You're gonna be mean like that to me? I'm done with you. I'm done. And I'm only gonna deal with you to the bare minimum. Narcs are ego, pride. In the end, they go down, never up. The older they get, they beg, yeah. I'm giving her all the information. Yes, I do confront him, but he files, yeah, a big emotional reaction. Yes, he more than likely knows. He's probably enjoying it. He probably enjoys belittling her a little bit. He probably enjoys criticizing her. So he probably has this angst, this anguish, and to get rid of it, they outsource it to somebody else. And it sounds like your daughter is like his emotional punching bag. It's not good. That's right. Consequences. I heard these kinds of people don't realize what they do. They realize. Some realize, some are twisting and distorting, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What matters is they're doing it. I lean towards they mostly know. I lean towards they know, and they're just full of it when they say they don't know. But they're experts at defending their actions or making it seem like it's something else. Or Sam Vaknin would say, oh no, they're confabulating. It's like, get the heck out of here with that confabulation. There's just too many narcs, and it's hard to build social circle. There are, but there's good people out there too. What I would recommend is whatever your interests are. So you have interests. That's one of the advantages of the social media era is there's a subreddit for everything. Whatever your interest is, there's a subreddit for it. There's a Facebook group for it. There's an Instagram page for it. There's a YouTube channel for it. Now, it's a different thing with in-person community. I'll agree with you there. But community online, that's a start. It's a start. Or see what kinds of hobbies that you can do in person around you. All right, Jan. I appreciate you stopping by. Sweet dreams. It is hard for people to understand to the narc you are just an object, not real, just an extension of them. Yeah, I think they struggled to understand their lack of empathy for them. Like they see you as a tool to be used and a tool to be exploited. For what purpose? Narcissistic supply. Yes, I told her don't make eye contact so his dirty looks have nowhere to fall. He's a jerk. Yes. Are you able to leave that situation? Because that's also probably what I would ask too. I fully acknowledge it's not always possible. There you go. Have a good one, Jam. Ellie says, I believe most abusers know they are deliberately cruel, but they are indifferent. I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, you got to think. Their actions speak loudest of all. What do their actions say? Their actions say that. They know. They just don't care. And that is something I'm going to go over with Dr. Salerno because he did say something that I'll mildly disagree with even. That should be interesting. It's always interesting when him and I have a little back and forth. They realize, but they feel righteous. That's exactly right. That's actually a great way to put it. They feel righteous in their bad behavior. They say, it's for your own good. Or the person on Instagram today was telling me, no, you're worshiping celebrities and you're enabling Sharon Osbourne's abuse and manipulation of other musicians. I'm like, what? Posting about her is doing all that? What? But those are the kind of leaps that they make. Oh, you got it. Their attacks are targeted, well calculated. Yes. That's why I say when they say they don't know, it's more than likely a manipulation tactic. It's like Dr. Simon says, it's not that they don't see, they just disagree. Yes. And the goal is control, avoiding accountability, power, narcissistic supply. My son blames me for his bad behavior, loves to question the sanity of others. Yes. Anyone that externalizing of the blame, that's always something to watch out for. You don't want that. And that's something they love to do. It's always someone else's fault. And that's where even narcissists will come to get coaching too sometimes, where they'll come to me like, the difference is they're not coming for themselves. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll put you on the screen here. Thank you very much for that. I definitely appreciate that. What was I saying? Oh, that's what they do. Yeah, so like people who have been victimized, they want help for themselves. They're like, okay, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this so I can get peace and be in a better place? How do I start trusting myself again? And that's how I know. But a lot of narcissistic people, they come to me, they're like, how do I control this other person? How can I get this person to admit they're wrong? How can I get this person to see that I'm right? It's like, and then there's clues. There's ways I go about it once I figure that out. But it's wild. I have. Now here's the thing. Some people actually come to me and they'll say, Jared, your videos sound like me. And it's not like their partner's just blaming them. They are this way. So I have done that. Now, how well does it go? I mean, that's debatable. But there's been a few to various degrees. The worst ones, probably not. I mean, the worst ones, they don't last once you disagree with them. The worst ones, you disagree, you see it differently, then you get these big emotional reactions, and it's the end. But the less severe ones, they don't like it. You can tell they're not going to like it, but they can still listen to it. Deb says, ask yourself, what does your narcissist want from you? Because you have something they want. What do you have? Money, land, house, car, etc. And it could just be narcissistic supply. Now, what the version of narcissistic supply is, that depends. It depends on the person. So maybe it can be sex, maybe it can be status, maybe it can be shelter, maybe it can be control, maybe it can be you look good on their arm. Really depends. Yes, I have. Ellie says, Deb Reese, good tip. Supply for narc can be odd. Supply can be just killing your vibe. Yep, that's a good point. That's all it takes sometimes. And what, why, and whose, if you have any other questions about that, I'll answer that for you. Yeah, sometimes the more miserable they can make you, the happier they are. And why does that happen? It happens because it's all about power. They feel powerful and superior when they know they have control over your emotional state. So the fact that they have the power to make you miserable, that makes them pleased with themselves. Sometimes it can be a version of duper's delight too, but duper's delight would be if they get away with a lie or they've gotten away with cheating or something like that. And then they'll be pleased with themselves for that. But the version of them being pleased for making you miserable, that's different. That's more like I have control over their emotional state. That makes me feel powerful. That makes me feel superior. So I like that. Where in reality, the more upset and miserable they make you, the more of an emotional reaction you get, the calmer the narcissist can get, which is one of those things that can be very infuriating for victims. You're losing it. And then meanwhile, the narcissist is able to calmly say, see, look at how insane you are. Look at how sensitive you are. You do really need therapy. You do really need help. Look at how calm I am. And look at you. You're out of control. It has a massive gaslighting effect. Sex with narcissist is boring. I'll say it's like a robot. Sex with narcissist can be like a robot. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. What, why, and who says, do you believe the genetics combines with life struggles and they can't cope? My son was born with horrific anxiety and a genetic tree prone to addiction. I think it's all a combination, right? So I think the difference with narcissism is I think they mostly have to have that impaired empathy component that's genetic, or they wouldn't be able to turn into as much of a narcissist. Even if you're traumatized or even if you're pedestalized, I think you can become egotistical and you might be spoiled, but I don't think you would become a full-blown narcissist. You could probably be narcissistic. And this is probably something to go over with Dr. Salerno, actually. I'll go over that with him. But I know addictions, they can definitely run in the family. And there's a debate of, well, what is it? Is it just the trauma and narcissism that runs through the family that creates anxiety and CPTSD that people want to self-medicate? It's a very interesting question. But I have a lot of supplement suggestions, honestly. I have a lot of supplement suggestions for people that struggle with anxiety. And a part of it's what kind of anxiety is it? Is it because he's on the spectrum? Is it an anxiety disorder, social anxiety disorder? Is it generalized anxiety disorder? How old is your son? No. Ellie says, it is bizarre. Supply can be making a mess to control space. Yes, very true. George says, they like pulling you down because misery loves company. Absolutely. And the old crabs in a barrel. The people who know that analogy, the crabs pull down the other crabs as they try to get out of the barrel. No genetics, just plain passes down as to how they were raised. Are you talking about narcissism or addiction? Psalm says, my goodness, you're describing him so well. I'm glad I'm not alone, but I'm not glad we all suffer one way or another. Yeah. Many of them do so many of the same things. And that's why people said back in the day, there was a Jezebel spirit, there was a demonic spirit, because they were describing, I think, this same phenomenon. They just had different words for it back then. It wasn't called narcissism, it was called something else. Spoiled. I mean, people who are spoiled, they can be selfish and entitled, no doubt. So AUDHD, as the kids would say. So here's some supplement recommendations. Have you heard of niacinamide, which is vitamin B3? It's actually shown to be like very helpful for anxiety, almost as much as a benzo, and it's vitamin B3. And there's other things. Ashwagandha can help with ADD. Tyrosine can help with ADD. Taurine can help with anxiety and ADD, because taurine stimulates GABA. GABA is a supplement I take every night to sleep. They'll tell you it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, but I kind of think the blood-brain barrier is BS. $8 years, Deb? You got a doctorate. You have an online doctorate in narcissism. What Y says, my half-sister has the debilitating anxiety too. We are all on the spectrum in my family, but bright, which helps to keep them functioning. Yeah, and there's versions of it, right? I feel like women on the spectrum are going to be a little bit different than a lot of men on the spectrum. It just presents differently, right? Yes, I take a lot of nutrients and also peptides for brain inflammation and reduction. I think that's great. I think NAC is also really good for inflammation. I think magnesium and zinc. I also take some probiotics that really help. Plus, I was married to one for 35 years. I'm so embarrassed. Now, I mean, you didn't know what you didn't know. And it takes a while to unravel all of that. 35 years is a long time. So make sure you give yourself a break with that. Debris, I'm glad you are here. I mostly watched videos on narcissistic behavior in the last decade. Yeah, you found it. I try to believe that we find these things when we're supposed to. And of course, the younger we are when we find them, the easier it is to believe that. I agree, Ali, she is. NAC is good stuff. Now, not all NAC is created equally. Yours truly gets it from Life Extension online. But GNC's is probably pretty good too. But it's supposed to be tart. And you'll only know if you break it open. But it's supposed to be really tarty. And it's supposed to smell bad. If it doesn't smell bad, I wouldn't trust it. Yes, men and women, very different. Probiotic for gut biome. Yes. 80% of our serotonin is in the gut, by the way. I think that's one of the big reasons that I take 2 different probiotics from Probiotic America, and they both really help. And they've both really helped my mood, which is something I wasn't expecting. Right, you played the cards you were handed at the time. Yeah, that's what we all did, right? We only knew what we knew. Deb says, therapist said he doesn't believe I'll ever get over it. Why the hell would he say that? Why is he placing these negative spells on you? Life Extension. Life Extension's version is much cheaper too, but it's also good. So, Deb, you should watch my interview with Cece when it comes out, because she would have a word or two, as I would, with your therapist for saying that. Curious one. Long time no see. Yeah, that's the right thing to do, to fire him, someone who puts spells on you like that. How are things, curious one? I get nutrient infusion every 3 months, which helps energy and immune. Nutrient affects my mood regulation and resilience. Yeah, totally. I take so many things, and each one of them, it's mind-boggling how much it affects me, because I'm on the spectrum. I think you knew that, but each one of those things is a puzzle piece, and one little puzzle piece is off, and the whole thing is off. And I don't know. I think I'm just very sensitive to every supplement too. We can get over anything if we view it correctly. Correct. CC. I think CC is CIICII. Did you watch the first one, George? She's got a contagious energy. She's actually really smart. She seems a lot older than she is. She's only in her 20s, I think. Yeah. My version of autism was just super anxiety, very bad social anxiety, awkward, not very socially intelligent, not very socially calibrated. So it was painful. Curious one says, I quit drinking 2 months ago. Congratulations. And fixed my wrecked gut. I noticed how alcohol contributed so much to my depression and bloating. Upped the fiber, NAC, take NAC, zinc, carnosine, and feel better. Yeah, NAC is great for addictions, they say too. It kind of hits that spot that people would want to act out with. So I'm glad you found something that worked. Because booze, I'll tell you, I can't do booze really anymore because the hangovers are just so bad. And even if I just drink a couple, I'm still not myself yet. You got it, son. Check it out, George. I think you would like it. It's probably about 2 to 3 months ago by now, but you can't miss her. And granted, and even though you got a curious one, I wasn't always this way though. You see me now with my supplement routine and everything I do. You didn't see me before. It was a little bit of a mess before. So, but I appreciate that. I appreciate and I'm grateful that I can even show up this way now. Energized healing and fitness. Welcome. Yeah, I mean, I drink maybe once or twice a year at this rate because I just don't like it. I don't like having that rebound. And it affects my moods now too. So, and especially if I do that, I don't want to make videos. I don't want to go live. I don't want to do any of that. I'm just like useless. So I don't. So I've learned. Here's the thing. When you've been socially uncalibrated, you learn the hard way. And some of those lessons they really stick because you learned them the hard way. But I've learned all of the lessons in life the hard way, I feel like. And that's another thing that CC said in her book too. There's so many things that she said in her book were things that I've already thought, or it's almost like we read the same books or something. But she had said, if you're not going out of your way to grow, you're probably not. And that's my experience too, is that the growth that I achieve, I'm definitely going out of my way to do it. I would always think maturing was, oh, you mature naturally. Well, not necessarily. You mature when you put in the work. You mature when you get honest with yourself. You mature when you self-reflect and you have some self-awareness and you try to develop the ability to take a step back and respond rather than react. Yes, it is. Suffering is a very good teacher. I mean, drinking, yeah, it affects every part of the brain and every part of the body. And it definitely steals motivation too. Curious ones, you were wise, energized, got stuck in bad coping for decades, behavioral health, treatment didn't help, physical healing and not hating myself did. Yeah, that's the thing. The psychiatrists in the traditional world, they know what they're taught a lot of times, but a lot of times they don't have the firsthand experience, whether it's with narcissism, whether it's with addiction, whether it's with mental health. Me personally, I've always appreciated getting help from people that have been there, whatever the issue is. And that's one of the benefits that you all get with me, by the way. All of those things are things that I've been through, whether it's being on the spectrum, addiction, mental health, narcissistic abuse, borderlines. the toxic parent, all of that. I've dealt with it all. So I can speak genuinely and from firsthand experience about all those things. Not for nothing, Deb. It becomes not for nothing when you learn what you can use it for. And don't confuse that with me saying you deserved it or it was good that it happened. No, it's just a point where once you can kind of share what you've learned with others, then it's not useless anymore. That's the thing. Energize says, I too have graduated School of Hard Knocks. Me too. And we have to rescue ourselves. I too learned the hard way. They stick the best that way, don't they? Savannah Rodriguez, welcome. Love your content. Do you feel like there's any narc solution? I don't, and I'd like a lot of how dare they, but they attack me also. More of them than me. Love you though. Thank you. Yeah, love you too. And when you say narc solution, what do you mean? A way to be in a relationship with them? A way for them to get better? To which I would say no and no. The only person that can help a narcissist is themselves. And for the very most part, I don't really see that happen. People like Lee Hammock try. I give him more credit than most. But for many of them, no. For most of them, no. And as far as relationships go, it's out of your control. If what they do is out of your control, so we have to just deal with what's in front of us. We deal with their actions. That's it. And once we're dealing with their actions, we have to act accordingly. And usually that means walking away. And part of the title of this video is most people are holding narcissists accountable all wrong. And what I mean by that is they'll try to hold them accountable. And what they think that means is getting the narcissist to agree that they did something wrong or to agree with their perception of reality and admit it. Yes, I lied. Yes, I cheated. But with narcissists, that's just not the way it's going to be. They're not going to do that. So the only thing left to do is to enforce consequences. And if someone does that a lot, they're not ever holding themselves accountable. There's no healthy relationship to be had at that point. What, why, and whose? Trusting in the absence of discernment brought me down many times. Plus a people pleaser. Now, yes, I can see how that could happen. That's a bad combination. Narcissists like that combination. And I bet you being part of on the spectrum probably contributed to that too, if I had to guess. Oh, yes, yes. That makes sense, Deb. I think the solution with narcs is to spot them fast. Absolutely. So my clues for doing that would be to say no, disagree with them, see how they act when they don't get their way, see how they treat people that can do nothing for them, see how they act when they drink, because often the mask will come off. And as someone said, in vino veritas, which is in wine there is truth. And then one of my commenters said, in wine there is truth, in narcissists only projection. Exactly right. George says, you being genuine comes through. You're not some empty, smiling bogglehead. Well, I appreciate that. I do. It's important to me to be genuine. I struggle. I would struggle to be some of the people that I see online that are just catering and pandering. And it's not for me. And that's also one of the reasons I like these lives here too, because I can talk about other things as well. that are related to the main topic, but we can talk about other stuff too. Yes, education, indignation, then self-motivation and action. It's a good rhyme. Righteous indignation. A waste of life force to control narc. One must control oneself with skills we must learn. Very true. All we can control is ourselves. And we can best help ourselves, or excuse me, we can best help others when we help ourselves first. Who spot those red flags? Yeah, that's true. But that's how you do it. I appreciate that. I've always been subscribed to the notion that when you're honest, you help the most amount of people, especially about the things that might be uncomfortable to share. And I got used to that at AA and NA. I was just so used to being honest about all sorts of things that it just became what I do. And it helps me because we can't help others without also helping ourselves. The danger with that would be when someone helps others to their own detriment. You don't want to do that. And that's where you can take a look at my video, Rules for Helping People. Or I have a video a few years ago called When to Stop Helping People. That's a good video to watch. Energy Healing says, I feel like my light attracts negative people, so I try to be more introverted by nature. I mean, that's understandable. I would say do what's owing you, whatever that looks like, and you develop the discernment and the boundaries and the assertiveness to navigate those kinds of people when they come into your life. That's what I would say. It's all I can do to be in my lane and not the narc lane. Yeah, so you do what's best for you. Global. What's shaking? I finally know what you meant the other day when you said 744p. I watched that video and it was trash. The picture was trash and there was an audio lag. If it is covert and you believe the manipulation, have a good heart. Once the fraud is discovered, you still have your good heart. Yes, that's exactly right. You still have your good heart as long as you act appropriately. Because if you stick it through, or you start deering, defending, excusing, explaining, or rationalizing, or saying something like, oh, I need to help them, or they need me, those are things you got to watch out for. Because those are the things I hear people tell me in the coaching consultations. Oh, this person really needs me. It's like, do they really need you? I say, I think you need you, and you need to show up for you and love yourself is what you need to do. Curious One says, honesty is so important to me. I actually sometimes think I need to learn to be a better liar because being honest can be wearing your heart on your sleeve with a giant target. I mean, that comes down to social calibration and discernment too. Like there are times for bearing it all, and there's times for playing it close to the vest. So I think what you would mean by liar would be when just to not go all in with someone, when to have some, to restrict yourself a little bit. That's what I would think. Deb says, those red flags all the way back to week before marriage and right after. Damn it, took therapists telling me to find 5 red flags, call him and discuss them. 5 red flags. What were the 5 red flags, Deb? They're good ones to go over. What, why, and who says, hiding is okay if it is necessary while you rest and learn. Yeah, I mean, it's like a cocoon period of healing. like caterpillars are in a cocoon and then they turn into a butterfly. We as humans go through those periods too, where we hunker down, you grow, you introspect. And that's how I've gone through life too, where I have periods of not being, God damn it. Stupid phone. Of not going through, like not going out and doing things. And then other times, like staying home, reading books, learning, journaling, meditating. There's seasons for both. Global says the lightness can be used as armor, used to force Luke. Obi-Wan says that. Buddha hid in a forest under a tree for 10 years, and it was called Seeking Enlightenment. Yeah, I like this story. So I am all for quiet, selfish time. I am learning to love self, not an easy task, but having fun trying. Amen to that. And you know what he also learned under that tree? This is something it's one of my best arguments for not minding your own business. Because the Buddha said he was under the tree seeking enlightenment. And then he's like, I found it. But then he realized by finding enlightenment, you can't just sit there under the tree. You have to try to help your fellow man. You have to try to make a positive impact in the world, because you can't just do nothing. You can't just be you, right? But there's time for that, though. Like that 10 years under the tree, though, turned him into the person that was best able to try to help the world. So you need both, right? There's the cocoon, but then there's, okay, once you've done some work, now you got to try to be a force for good in the world, because we see that happen a lot, where there's a lot of not so good forces out there. Have a good night, energized, healing, and fitness. Savannah says, that happens to me too. At energized, they say the broken find us somehow, which I don't think is fair for us, but we end up fixing them, even if they break us. Now, I would offer you a reframe with that, Savannah. I would say it's not necessarily that you're fixing them. You probably help take care of them. And you might even shelter them from some consequences sometimes, or you support them in a way that they're able to do things in their life. But the only person that can fix them is truly themselves. And don't get that twisted with, it doesn't mean you're not helping them. It doesn't mean you're not supporting them. You absolutely are. You're probably allowing for them to do things they wouldn't be able to do. And they use you as a sounding board. So that's how I would phrase that. Sometimes when I get bed sick, I try to understand a meaning for my rest. That's what Jim Carrey said once. He said, depression is deep rest. Use the... What's your favorite Star Wars movie? Curious One says, even Jesus went into the desert. Why is quiet time that is personal so frowned upon in the West especially? Is it even frowned upon anymore? I guess depending on who you talk to. Like for some people it is very frowned upon, you're right. But maybe like I don't hang out with as many people anymore. And I kind of cut those kinds of people from my life that would act that way. So I just don't deal with it. I'm sure they're out there. They just don't do it to me. Deb says, I'll never forget what he said. I let him get away with everything. That made us mad because we all try way too hard to prevent them getting away with their shit. Yeah. Savannah says, when I get money, I'll be here for you, miss. I assume you're a miss. I'll definitely be here for you. I heard the use the force line in 77 and thought, wow, the truth is out there. X-Files line. I caught that. Loved that part of the story. Yes. That was a good part of the story. Hoorah to Phil Bradley, too. Oh, God. Reframe is right. Yeah, no fixing, only fix self, but it is sweet of people to want to take others' pain. Yes. I think people can be there for one another. You can absolutely be supportive of someone and offer comfort and love. Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the most powerful things in the world. No doubt. Like, we're all going to be human, and people want that. Rest is needed is right. You find your shadow in the quiet time, and then you integrate the shadow, right? I agree with that. I've known a lot of people, Deb, that have developed cancer, autoimmune disorders from dealing with them. So that's a thing. Definitely a thing. Gotta work, gotta hustle, Protestant work ethic. Even healing has been talked about in terms of doing the work. Yes. Dr. Nicole LaPera has a book titled Do the Work. You follow her account on Instagram, the holistic psychologist. She doesn't like me, by the way. I couldn't even tell you why she doesn't like me, though. I've never, have I called her out ever? I might have disagreed with her before, but I've never been mean to her. No, understandable, Global. Healing is work, but it can also be a joy. Yes. Ellie accepting that defiantly helped me so much. Yes. Integrating. And that's what Cece was telling me about too. There's the dark shadow, but there's also the golden shadow. And she actually taught me about that because I had never heard of it. And the golden shadow is the parts of ourselves that are our gifts that we're just not exploring and actualizing and giving away to the world. So we have all sorts of golden shadow gifts to be giving. Because as Les Brown said, the cemetery is the richest place on earth because it's full of all the unwritten books, the unstarted businesses, and the uninvented inventions that just never came to be because those people just never did it. So the cemetery is the richest place on earth. Dr. Rampage. Bad spell. Not Dr. Romney? Yeah, Dr. Romney. Yeah, I'd never heard it. I'd never heard of the golden. I made the joke with her. I was like, "You reminded me of the golden shower." I was like, "No, that's not." She's like, "That's not what it is." But she laughed. She laughed a lot at that. If you haven't seen that interview, I highly recommend you check it out. She's got a great energy. It's one of those things that's just undeniable about her. And she's a pretty girl too, but that's not her energy is completely unrelated to that. It's her vibe. Her vibe and her energy. She'd be attractive even if she wasn't pretty, if that makes sense. You'll know it. You'll know what I'm talking about with that, George. The golden shadow. Les Brown knows about it too. But it's a good exercise for all of us to ask ourselves, okay, what do we think that we're not giving? What's the work that we should be doing that we're not doing to get to the goals that we should be getting to? All very interesting questions. Ask ourselves different questions and then we'll get different answers. And I like asking something called an empowering question. An empowering question is things like, oh, Why couldn't I do that? Of course I should be able to do that. A golden shadow is the gifts, the things that are hidden. So just like there's a dark shadow of the things that are not so good about ourselves, I shouldn't say not so good even. They're just things that need to be integrated properly so we can become the best versions of ourselves and fully integrate. So maybe our anger, or maybe a temper, or maybe our sexuality, or whatever it might be. So we integrate. The golden shadow are the other gifts. So maybe we have a gift for art, but we're not doing any art. That's part of our golden shadow. Maybe we have a gift for writing, but we're not doing any writing. Part of our golden shadow. We have a gift for music, but we're not doing any music, or we're not doing it enough. That's our golden shadow. Yes, that's Dr. Ramani's wheelhouse. All right, well, why and who's? It was great having you here. Till next time, like I said, I'm trying to be live at least 3 to 4 times a week. And as long as people like me doing these, I'll do these instead of longer form recorded videos. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. It just comes off as boring to me, a recorded video now. Instead of doing a live, it's more interesting and stimulating. Curious One says, I like that. Our shadow could be anger, but our golden shadow might be telling us we value justice and are here to find it. Yeah, I could see that. That would be part of it too. Right? Because we think a shadow, we automatically usually think the not so good. But the golden side, no. If you got like a sense of justice that a lot of people on the spectrum have, well, maybe you should be trying to seek that out somehow. Maybe, and what you got to figure out what avenue of life you want to do that in. 2:30 p.m. in Australia. It's 12:27 a.m. here in New Jersey. You painted birdhouses listening to Jesus music? I love it. I love it. What's your favorite bird? I'm a big owl and bald eagle fan. I've actually seen more bald eagles in the wild than I have owls. No better connection than you'll find in nature, they say. Ah, thank you so much, miss. I definitely appreciate that. As the chats get bigger here, that would probably definitely be the ways at some point to get a hold of me. The old super chats. Chickens. I am a night owl as well. I like to consider myself a vampire. Savannah Rodriguez says, I should have been a model actress and my family helped to stop me from it. It didn't take much to stop me and I should have tried harder. Upset that I didn't try harder back then. Had a DJ's child that hates me instead of him now. Well, you can't beat yourself up about that. I think we all have regrets, but all we can do is the next right thing or the next best thing. I don't know how old you are, but here's a story for you. I was in a commercial not that long ago, maybe like February-ish, and there was a woman there that was in the commercial with me. She didn't start this until after she was 40. She got into the industry and now she does all these commercial roles. So it happens. Yeah, yours truly has been in some commercials, and the movie. I don't talk about that much, but I have been. Global says, a serpent evil tempts Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, promising knowledge and power from the tree of knowledge. Some choose to the wrong path. Narc. Parakeets. Never regret, only look forward and forgive self. Amen. Amen. But no regrets. It's like Moonlight Graham said in Field of Dreams. He lived his whole life in Minnesota. He's lived here, he'll die here, but no regrets. And one of my favorite quotes from that scene is, we don't recognize the most important moments of our lives while they're happening. He said, I thought there'll be other days, but for him to be a baseball player, but he didn't realize that was the only day. But he realized there's a lot of wisdom in that scene because he thought he wanted to be a baseball player and he turned into a doctor instead. And the guy Kevin Costner's character was playing, he said, I can bring you back in time, basically, to be a baseball player. But Moonlight Graham refuses because Moonlight Graham has some wisdom. And he said, Kevin Costner's character says to him, some men would consider it a tragedy to become this close to their dreams and not touch it. And Moonlight Graham says, son, it would be a tragedy if I was only able to be a doctor for 5 minutes. That's good. Mayor McMuffin. The Muffin Man? Volunteering can open lots of doors. You can get exposure skills and cool experiences without the resume. Wow. Flinch's Cocktails, Canary 2. Red Finches? Yes. I know that song. And that's also what he says in the movie, too. You can't go back. You can't go back after you cross the baseline from being young Moonlight Graham to being old Moonlight Graham. Remember the Hamburglar? Yeah, Ellie, if you want to watch that scene, it's on YouTube, and it's a good scene. Magical scene. Do all of you follow me on Facebook, by the way? Jared Mello on Facebook. I'm not sure if you're anti-Facebook, but that's my biggest following is on Facebook. You know the annoying thing? I've been doing YouTube the longest, like content-wise, and I have less subscribers on YouTube than I do on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram. It's crazy. Finch's Cocktails, Canary 2. You bred finches, huh? You're in love with Finch's mom? Or Stifler's mom? No Facebook? Well, you're not missing too much. Yes, YouTube views are the most valuable. Anti-meta, huh? That's understandable. I'm only there, they pay me. Or else, and I've been on there a long time, or else you're right, I wouldn't be there. I'm not very happy with Instagram. I'll tell you that. Instagram sucks. It's a movie reference, Deb. Finch's mom, I think, is one of those college party movies from the early 2000s. Yeah. Yeah, you're not missing much on Facebook. I'll give you that. It'll also be interesting to see what happens with TikTok coming up here too, because TikTok, they might make an American-only version soon. Yeah, it does. It actually pays me better than YouTube, which is disappointing. I have to follow you in TikTok and Insta. Facebook people are impersonating me, so I haven't been on there in some years. Yeah, so Instagram and TikTok are pretty much getting the same things. I do some things first to Facebook only because I have 170,000 people that follow me there. And I mean, my YouTube here is only, I don't even know how many I have, 21,000. But the difference is, I think the people who follow me on YouTube, I get more back and forth with, because when I talk like this is how you can get to know me and I get to know you. You don't really get that on Facebook. And Facebook's not a place for live streams, really. It's just, I post my shorts and I post my posts, and then people comment, and then that's really it. It's not as much depth. Just is what it is. Yeah, I think I don't watch too much TV anymore, Deb, either. Yes, YouTube is definitely about advertisers. I don't blame you, no Facebook. YouTube is suing Australian government for restricting access to YouTube. Are they really? Interesting. That's actually probably a good policy, though, for Australia. Or what do you think about it? Do you like that? Do you think kids should be on social media and YouTube? It's an interesting debate. I haven't really paid attention to the debate. I know people like Jonathan Haidt are all for restrictions because he thinks social media is not very good for the brain, especially the developmenting brain, especially for women, he says, girls. I mean, that's basically what this is, a smaller chat room, really. When you get over 100,000, you can really take off. Plus, the interest in narcissism is exploding. Yeah, I'm trying to tap into that, right? I got to figure out the best way to do it. As you can see, I've been doing the lives here because I think of all the people in the space, I don't know too many of them that are doing lives. Like everyone's doing the videos, everyone does shorts, people do longer form content. But who's going live? Who's going live besides yours truly? Savannah says, it feels like you speak to my soul, like how things were years ago. Oh, I don't know if you're talking to me, but if you are, thank you. I miss the days before social media and phones. Entire friendships are now managed by text. I hate texting. That's the majority now, right? People see each other as words on a screen way more than they see each other in person now. Some will use LinkedIn and broadcast others in the same field. Yes, that's true. I don't do much on LinkedIn. Although, that's how I found Meredith Miller, if you know who that is. She was one of the people that I learned a lot from years ago. It was awesome, actually, being able to talk to her. She's an awesome person. Gaming is a bigger problem than social media for boys? Yes. I've actually had an analogy before. Video games for boys is social media for girls. The difference is social media can be a business for more girls than video games can be a business for boys. Now, there are some people that got big as dudes that play video games and that are now huge. But a girl is on TikTok. You can make a fortune on TikTok. Even Instagram. Oh, thank you, Savannah. I appreciate you. Narcissistic vids been around for years. Alive works when the creator and commentators have chemistry. Yeah. I think it's going pretty well. Now, granted, the bigger it gets, the more difficult that might be. That's for sure. Meredith is back. Back to where? YouTube? Interesting. You have a pretty face, referencing one of your previous vids, so you should rock it, and live has been a privilege and fun. I appreciate that. The old pretty boy they used to call me. I don't know if I pull that off anymore. Be a little gray in the beard. I'll have to check. What did she make a video about, Curious One? Because I know she got a little more political. Did you watch my interview with her? It's probably 6 months ago by now. But we talked for a couple hours. We were good friends for a minute. I haven't talked to her for a while, but I should probably reach out to her. Is she doing like political stuff? Or is she talking about narcissism? Thank you. Oh, I got 2 hours here. Living the dream. So you were all night owls with me. But what, whys, and whos is not a white owl or night owl because it is 2:30 in the afternoon where she is. Mornings in the lab with Keith, John, and friends. Channel is newish and has an excellent format, production style. That is the future of YouTube AI used. Interesting. I'll have to write it down. What do they talk about? Mornings in the lab with Keith, John, and friends. That's the thing about AI. It's going to take over everything. Like you have to. We're going to have. I was resistant to it, but I'm learning I have to start using it and integrating it, or I'll fall behind. That's what I was resisting. But there is no more resisting it. Curious One says about Meredith, she posted a few vids so far talking about why she took a break and how that helped her. We were talking about reflection and rest earlier. She was speaking to that. She just moved, I think. I'll have to ask her about that. I'll have to try to check out that video. You're a night owl? So when you say it's 2:30, is it backwards or forwards from here? So right now, it's 12:42 a.m., which is Sunday morning for me. Is it 2:30 in the afternoon on Sunday where you are? Or is it 2:30 in the afternoon on Monday? Or 2:30 in the afternoon on Saturday? Yes, discernment is very important with AI. It's yeah, I'm a little nervous about it. What do you think of Sam Vaknin as a narc educating of narcissism? How do we know if he is being deceptive or biased to himself? A very good question. I made a short about him that made a lot of his followers very angry with me. But what I said was, I said it wrong in the video. I said he has a PhD in philosophy. He's got a PhD in physics. He's not licensed in psychology in any way. And he's a narcissist. And I think he also has antisocial personality disorder. And so basically what I was saying, that can be influencing some of what he says. It doesn't mean what he says is all wrong. It just means that how his narcissism shows up, it might influence what he says. And there's something to be mindful of. Not to discredit him, not to discredit everything he says, but that could always be an aspect of it. So he has some grandiosity when he says, I'm the leading expert in narcissism, and yet I have no credentials in psychology. Now, granted, you can know your stuff and not have credentials in psychology, but to say you are the leading expert and then have no credentials, I think that's a grandiose claim. I'd invite him on, but I would doubt he would come on. I don't think he'll like me. I'll invite him, though. I'll have anyone. Yes, Jared Mello is my YouTube address. Yes. So you're in the mountain time zone, Deb. So 2:30 on Sunday. So you're basically 14 hours in front of us. I thought it would have been more, but I guess not. So you're close to me because I'm in New Jersey. Yeah, so you're in New York City. Pennsylvania. What part of Pennsylvania? I used to do a lot of political polling in Bucks County. I'll try, George. My friend Melanie Almadine, she interviewed Sam, and she told me he had all sorts of rules for her, like no interruptions, no this, no that. It's an interesting interview though. If you look up Melanie Almadine, Sam Vaknin, they go over things in regards to autism and narcissism. It was an interesting interview. I liked it. One thing you won't see me fake is being a morning person. No, I can be a day person. Morning person? No, sir. No, sir. Wizards don't like morning. Wizards don't really do well being social before noon, for that matter. Yeah, he's fine. Like I said, I've learned a lot from Sam. Can what be true and false? New York just had EQ. What does that stand for? Well, I used to do them with my friend Kelly. I think Marcella from Beyond the Bruise would do some with me. CC. But I do see that. I see that with the Eva and Javier show, and I see that with others. His IQ in regards to Sam is too high, and he is often the smartest dude in the room. And so he seems sometimes to play with, he does do that. My friend Kelly was telling me she was watching his documentary, and that's what he was doing to one of the interviewers, apparently. His ego is huge, plus he hates the suggestion of the gene called. Yes, he does. That's the thing I disagree with him on. I don't know why he doesn't like it so much. That, and I don't like how he talks about confabulation. I'm on Team Dr. Salerno with that. Team Dr. Salerno with genes. I've invited Dr. Robert Plomin. That's another person that Dr. Salerno really likes. And if he answers me, we're going to do a triple like I did with Dr. Simon and him. A triple interview. Yeah, I mean, Sam's definitely very smart. I can't deny that. He's smart and articulate. Earthquake. Oh, okay. We did? That's news to me. Luzerne County. Where is that? Northeast or north central? Or no, is that by Lancaster? I think I remember it. Some will use a call-in show. Yeah, if I was talking about dating stuff, I would do that. If I could try to set it up. I do like the dating topic too. He's correct too. Okay, who? How do you accept the sad reality that you had narcissistic parents? I feel like a homeless person sometimes. I mean, that's a hard thing to accept because it does impact every element of your life. Often people develop CPTSD, they have or anxiety disorders, insecurities. I think one of the best ways to accept it is to try to pull the positives from it, if there were any. If you look hard enough, you might be able to find some. But if not, you can just like chalk it up to, well, they taught me what not to be. But an example of a positive would be, so my parents were really into like working hard, not being lazy, like taking care of your health and looking good. So those are qualities that I think serve me well now. I didn't like them at the time, but it's just an example of accepting it and like integrating it. So it's not just me being resentful. Yeah, it is true. And yes, I would say is true and false about Sam. I think he does know his stuff in narcissism. Absolutely. And I agree with most of what he says. There's just a couple things that I don't. And I do think it's grandiose of him to say he's the leading expert and he doesn't have credentials. And again, I'm not someone who has credentials, so I'm not someone that's holding credentials up on an altar. I'm not appealing to authority when I say that, but I fully just recognize that I would never call myself a leading expert unless I had credentials. To me, I say about me, I know my stuff, but I wouldn't call myself a leading expert. I've got a lot of experience. That's what I'll say. Yeah, call-ins are interesting. 3.0. Holy mackerel. Angela, I used to say my ex-narcissist, don't you feel like we're just roommates? Yeah, I mean, that's what happens sometimes. When the love is gone, according to a Muppet Christmas Carol. That's true, Angela. My cell phone did fall earlier. You're right about that. Mornings in the Lab interviews people just saying connecting with other creators as a guest expands subscribers. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I try to do with the interviews too, but it's different when it's actually live. So I've been doing recorded interviews, which are good in some ways, but there's also a different benefit of a live connection. I'm looking it up, Ellie, and I won't say it. God damn it. Okay. It's a very scenic place. Very scenic. I've been there. Like I said, I've done political polling all over Pennsylvania. And dating stuff is something that it's even more broad than the narcissism topic. So sure, there's a lot of narcissistic people in the world. A lot of people have experience with it, but the dating topic is even more broad, and people, like everyone, most people want some kind of romantic relationship. So you got it, Ellie. Angela says, do narcissists have the belief that they are unworthy and undeserving? I used to think so, but now I don't, not as much. I think some of them do really feel superior and grandiose. Now, do all of them feel that way? Dr. Salerno would say yes. But I think there can be some that maybe not. However, the ones that they used to consider vulnerable narcissists or covert ones, they're associating that more with BPD now, which leaves the other versions of narcissism. They really just are the grandiose and superior, and they do really feel that way. Now, if anything, they have feelings of grandiosity, right? They have feelings of grandiosity and superiority. And their actions are generally more congruent with that. There is just this old paradigm that Dr. Simon would talk about where they would say, no, these narcissists must just be so insecure. They're overcompensating for all of this inadequacy and toxic shame. And Dr. Simon correctly said, actually, they actually have too little shame and they have too little anxiety, which causes them to do reckless things because they just don't care. Yep, I live in New Jersey. Like Jefferson Airplane said, and your friends treat you like a guest, don't you want somebody to love? Yes, that's a good way to put it. Because there's a big difference between them feeling shame and actually feeling bad about what they did and then being called out for what they did. That's when they'll care what you think. When they care about who you are as a person, they think you have enough power to hurt them, and then you say it. Yeah, they'll care about that. But other times, like if they're devaluing you and they don't care about you anymore, then they don't care much about what you think or feel in that case. A lot of cool stuff goes down in Jersey, this Jersey Shore. I used to believe in soulmates. Now I believe there's more than one if there's such a thing. But my favorite definition of a soulmate is the person that helps you to become the most you can be and forces you to grow the most as a person, keeping in mind not all growth is comfortable. That's my favorite definition of a soulmate, and it's from the show 6 Feet Under. Savannah says, I had different ones. Some felt like I was trying to act better than them, and others felt like, why did I deserve to be treated right? And others worse than them. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I do think there can be mildly different varieties. That's interesting. Find a quotation book from the 19th century on internet archives, historical lights, and show the similarities of life in the past as it is today. That would be very interesting. We're pretty toasty here in New Jersey. It was 96 a couple days ago. It's warmer here than it is in South Carolina. Interesting. Yes, if you get to them, then it will be a narcissistic injury. Absolutely. And some of them, it depends though, right? Like some of them, like there are people that you can see they're extremely sensitive to anyone trying to like talk to them like they're above them. Ooh, they hate that. You be the best version of yourself. That's how you do it. You become the best version of you. It's more important to be the right person than to find the right person. So you date yourself. You date yourself. You do the things that you would always want to do. There's a character in a TV show, Harvey Specter, says, you know that person that you would do anything for? Well, make that person yourself and do what you want. But Ryan Hughes says, I don't think they should separate covert narc from overt, as they just aren't as charismatic, so they act in a subconscious way. But underneath, they are foul, envious victims and vindictive. Yes, they still have the same base traits of narcissism. 6 Feet Under? It's a great series. They both have the same traits. The only difference would be how they present themselves. So the grandiose overts would be more bombastic. Coverts, just not as bombastic a lot of times. But they still can be, right? It's really just when the narcissistic traits themselves are covert. They can still be an outgoing personality. That's the other part that's tricky for people. Hello, Susan. Dr. Peter Salerno says that the assumption that narcissists are caused by childhood trauma and are injured is wrong. They are born that way. He says that there's a large genetic component, and he will say it's not impossible. He won't say it's impossible to just develop one from an environmental, but what are you referring to? That curious one said. I don't think curious one said anything to dispute what you're saying. 6 Feet Under, that is, beginning first intro was freaking. I liked all of the series. It got pretty wild and it got pretty dark, but it was still good. The covert narcissist is an animal of its own. Yeah, they're sneaky because a lot of people have a covert narcissist parent and they just didn't know. They didn't know until their 30s sometimes. Cool advice, wizard. I never treated myself as good as I treated others. Yes, that's why it's important to love ourselves. Narcissists don't have personality and identity. Their problem of jealousy is horrible. Who wants jealous people around? Exactly. I saw a friend of mine say actually a cool joke tonight. She had said, my ex said, "What are you doing tonight?" And she said, "Everything you've always accused me of, and it's a blast." Those floating blow up dolls. She thought Jesus had returned. I know the episode you're talking about. That was a great episode because Nate was so angry that the husband was able to be so serene about her death. And he was like, "What's wrong with you? Your wife just died. Why aren't you mad? Why aren't you grieving?" But he just was truly detached and was like, "No, that was God's will. God's will for her to do that." But she was so religious that she saw the blow up dolls and thought they were angels or Jesus returned, right? I think the cluster B gene is in the male branch of my tree, and the women and the woman are raised to people please. Yeah, I mean, that is a dynamic. I don't try to be funny, but sometimes I can be. So I think there's certain families that are more patriarchal families, and there's certain families that are more matriarchal families. I've been in a family that's been overarching matriarchal, but my individual family, my personal family, was more patriarchal, if that makes sense. Overarching, it was way more women in charge. I was taught to be more of like a people pleaser and putting other people first. So that's why I've never understood when some people say, no, 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 it's like all men are raised to be this. It's like, well, I wasn't raised to be that. Susan says, one of my children was an overt narcissist and the other was a covert narcissist. The overt one was diagnosed, but the covert one was hard to understand until I started learning about narcissism. Yeah, I mean, that's usually how it will go. Overt ones are more easier recognizable. The coverts can be more difficult to detect by definition. Like I said, I might use that joke with her permission on Facebook, perhaps. Not that you'll see it on Facebook. You have to wait for it to come on YouTube. Mexican pickup truck was a mess. Yes, and all those stickers all over her station wagon. Who is your favorite character, Deb? I like Nate. Although Dr. Salerno says there might not be such a thing as a vulnerable narcissist anymore. It really might just be a borderline and not a vulnerable, according to Dr. Salerno and the new research. Um, Can a person be a covert and overt narcissist at the same time? Um, they can differ in presentation, right? So, and sometimes they might be, I think they can change over time. So there can be a grandiose that might be more covert in some cases, and there could be a covert that's more grandiose in some cases. I don't necessarily think it's completely static, but for some of them it might be. For some of them that could be the case. And there's also some dudes, the quote unquote nice guy dudes. It's hard to say. Are they covert? Are they vulnerable? Or would that really just be a borderline? It's hard to say. Donkey Kong says, hello, Donkey Kong. It's so frightening to think we can birth kids with personality disorders and no amount of good parenting can change it or stop it. Yeah, that is certainly what could be a thing. I would say all you can do is what I said the other day, which is you try to enforce consequences and you don't let their manipulation tactics work. But that's it. What else can you do? It still might not work, but it's better than nothing. And try to get them into therapy if they're willing, but chances are they won't be willing. Yes, I was made to be a people pleaser no matter what, and secret keeper, selfless, not selfish, and it really only hurt me, I guess. Yes, I can definitely relate to that. Yes. Covert narcissist, very passive aggressive, sneaky, indirect, subtly manipulative, not fun. Susan says, a Donkey Kong. That is so true, and many child psychologists don't know anything about it. I think they're catching on, although some other doctors don't agree. It's like Dr. Mark Ettinson, for example, he does not agree with Dr. Salerno. And he is someone that I spoke to before too, by the way. And I invited him back on, to which he did not agree, at least not yet. It is that absence of real empathy that defines them? Yes, 100%. Big knobs, big no BS. Big no BS, excuse me. I wrote a book about what the narcissist did when they were abusing and gang stalking me. Well, that doesn't sound very good. And put it out there on Amazon. This way, the whole world can read about what assholes they are. Well, I'm very sorry that happened to you, first of all. But I'm glad you were able to turn some wounds into wisdom there and share it with others. I think that's one of the best ways to let go of resentment. All but probably poor Claire, because she was my least favorite too. Although as I've gotten older, I can understand her a little more, but she was very angsty and she came off abrasive. Like the way she would deal with some of her boyfriends. Not the first one, but the other ones, Russell and others, it was just like obnoxious. My experience is BPD and not me, but my child. What kind of BPD would you say? George Presley, my daughter, who was a covert narcissist, was very passive aggressive. Probably lots of guilt trips in there too, if I had to guess. Some experts say that narcissism is a demonic possession. Do you believe that? I believe that's where, I bet you some cultures absolutely believed that. But I think there's varying degrees. I think some of the more severe ones, it's very possible. The less severe ones, not as much. But here's the other thing. I think people can be possessed by like a gambling demon or a drug addiction demon or a sex addiction demon or a pornography demon. I feel like those can be demons too. Curious One says, Dr. M. Scott Peck writes in People of the Lie about how the most evil people are the least likely to be amenable to psychotherapy. Yes, that makes sense. People were mentioning that book in the comments section of my one video with Dr. Salerno. Only thing to do, radically accept that they are what they are Move forward with yourself. Are you referring to narcissistic kids, Ellie, or something else? Yep, and that does happen too. But I think it's happening as people talk about it. Because here's the thing, a kid can be sensitive, and like genetics are a big part of many ways that children come up. I was taking my children who are now adults to family psychologists in the 1980s. Yeah, I mean, 1980s was a whole different ball game back then. Things have changed a lot since then. Big heart, no BS. Good. Over 52. Matchmaking for over 50-year-olds, huh? Big Heart No BS says, yes, it changed my life for the better to write a book and get my anger out in a way that was not going to hurt anyone. I'm here to help people. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here to share some stuff with the crowd. We have a flock of black sheep, is what I like to call them. I'll consider myself the shepherd of black sheep. I remember that with the moo. The moo. What was his name? Gavin? Gabe. One of my favorite characters was David's dad. And Michael C. Hall is a great actor, considering he was Dexter, and then he was the gay funeral director in 6 Feet Under. A lot of acting range there. Now these live chats disappear. Big Heart No BS. My twin sister is a covert narcissist. I had to go no contact on her back in 2006 after she started smearing my 4-year-old's name. Yeah, wow, that's no good. It's no good that she would smear your 4-year-old. A twin sister too? Was she jealous that you had a kid or something? I'm not sure what type of BPD. It's all very confusing. Lots of social workers try to say, oh, it's autism, but psychiatrists and therapists say BPD. She seems to have around 7 of the 9 criteria. How old is she? Because there's some people that say undiagnosed autism can look like BPD, or CPTSD can look like BPD, but there's certainly some differences. Kind of getting tired of people saying it's autism. Well, but how old is she though? Yep, and it sounds like you did what was best for you then, Susan, which is good. Having a cluster B child carries a feeling for me of failure and sadness for him and others that interact with him. Yes, my son seemed possessed while gripped with gambling and drink. Yes, I could definitely see that. And even the symptoms of an addiction period can mimic the symptoms of narcissism. And it could also be both anyway. A narcissist can also have an addiction issue. Triple ones, George. It's lucky numbers. Make a wish, but don't tell me. The truth deserves light. Big Heart No BS. Yes. Secrets grow in the dark and die in the light. I think so. I'm the wizard of radical self-respect, and I have my wizard's office in the woods, but I'm also a shepherd of black sheep. 3:11 p.m. in Australia. Got some kangaroos in your backyard? Or some other marsupials? Angel number 111 is often seen as a sign of new beginnings, opportunity, and manifestation. I'm all about the manifestation. And you reminded me of someone else who mentioned manifestation to me today. 16. So here's the thing. When someone's 16, their frontal lobe and their brain is not fully developed yet. And I would also be curious what the 7 of the 9 criteria are. because some of it could just be being young. But if it continues and continues and continues, then it's more likely that's a personality disorder. But you never know. It could be other things too. But you know the situation. I don't know the situation. Susan, I'm so sorry about your kids. That's heartbreaking. Yeah, it is always tragic when it's a kid. Is there a way to save chat on Android? If there is, I don't know about it. I would say maybe try to Google it or Chat GPT it. Yeah, Dexter is a good show. That's years old now too. Not as old as 6 Feet Under though. False, boob. I remember that was the one where the cat knocks over the electrical appliance into the bathtub. Yes, yes. Twin sister was jealous. I had a kid. Absolutely. You nailed it. How did I know? The wizard has his ways. She was tested twice for autism and very negative. Positive for ADHD. I guess my issues with psychiatrists is I don't trust them. For the most part, I don't trust them because they messed me all up back in the day. They had no idea. But they did throw me antipsychotics back then. They had no problems doing that. That's a good dad joke, Global. Big heart, no BS. It was very painful at the time, but that was a few years ago, and I have adjusted. That's good. Intention is the difference between autism, CPTSD, and BPD? Yes. Yes, I agree with that. On 50 acres in the rainforest near Byron Bay. I love that. Watch his first role into TV by watching 6 Feet Under. He's a Martian. 6 Feet Under is a great show. It's a real show. I like Dexter's dad, or excuse me, David's dad. And I specifically like the part where he said, you're holding on to your pain like it's doing something for you. And sometimes what you got to do is let go. Another good dad joke by Global. How do you catch a squirrel? You climb a tree and act like a nut. You got it, Ellie. Curious One says, I was locked up on my 16th birthday from bad home environment and school bullying. I am not a fan of pathologizing children. It's traumatizing. I can understand that. But I can also understand the parent that kind of wants to figure out what's going wrong, I guess, too. I see both. It was a lot harder because I was blamed back in the 80s when it was all happening. Depressionals. Yeah, that's not very good either. I wouldn't like that either, Susan. My counselor was a waste of time and space. Not very good. Psychiatrists are weird, not in touch with the real world, I find. I have found that to be true as well, George. I found I'm the expert on me, is what I say. Because they don't know. What do they know from a 2-hour intake? They're not living my life. Good question, Susan. I wonder about that too. Psych got it wrong for me too. Misdiagnosed glandular fever and gave psychotropic, nearly killing my liver. 2 functions left. Nice. Yeah, that's happy. Yeah, they don't know. They take these kickbacks from big pharma. She has chronic self-harm for years, poor sense of self, abandonment issues. She split and run away now. SI and I had a plan, unstable relationships. Oh, suicide. Extremely impulsive, unstable mood. Yeah. And it very well likely she does. Very well likely she does. Curious One. I read a book back then that helped. What did I do wrong? My parents didn't want to figure out anything. They wiped their hands clean. I don't forgive it. Understandable. The language professionals is out of touch if a kid understands you doing right. Yeah, I think that's the problem with them. They get into their educational bubble and they're outside of the real world. Yours truly has a real world education as well as a little bit of an academic education. So things like real life addiction, being a taxi cab driver before Uber and Lyft came around, they give you a different kind of education. Ellie says, I ended up at a clinic that was primarily focused on transsexuals. I did not belong there as I am a garden variety heterosexual. Yeah, it sounds like they misplaced you. Donkey Kong says, Dr. Salerno has been a godsend for understanding all of this. We have gone above and beyond for her, trying to help her. Then we got told it's because of abuse and trauma, but she had a normal, ideal home. What other parts of what Dr. Salerno said helped besides the genetic part? Also, many psychiatric symptoms are similar and get lumped under the psych umbrella of expertise. Misdiagnosis is rampant. Yes, it is rampant. I would say it's almost 50% of the time rampant, if not more. So it's hard. That's very difficult. That's very difficult. When over 50% of the time you're getting a misdiagnosis, if you don't see it right, you're not going to be able to treat it right, as Dr. Simon says. Only truth allowed here. Curious one. Only the truth. Because the bitterest truth is better than the sweetest lie. Well, we're coming up on 3 hours here. Getting tired myself. So, pills without strategies equal professional negligence. I think, like for me, supplements have really helped, but supplements alone are not enough. You still need the other parts of life. I call it a 50% science, 50% spiritual approach. And what's under the spiritual umbrella are things like community, a sense of purpose, loving relationships, a good sense of purpose, hobbies, friends, all that stuff. But also, if things are going awry with your neurotransmitters or hormones, that's the science part. That stuff needs to be down too. Global physical medicine is technically trial and error, and AI makes it easier. I mean, AI is going to take over a lot of it soon. They'll take over all sorts. I mean, that's why it's called a practice. No, I get what you're saying. That is what psychiatrists will do. They'll say, here you go. Here's some Seroquel. Here you go. Here's some Zyprexa. Oh, here you go. Here's an SSRI. Dr. Salerno has helped so much. Besides understanding how this can happen in your child, he's helped with some ways to go forward, types of therapy, etc. Yeah, that makes sense. Psychiatric drugs just numb, so do addictions. Neither heal the body, mind, and soul. Also true. Ah, you got it, Ellie. Sometimes the time just flies right by. Deb says, I'm just happy I retained my sense of humor and quirkiness. Watch the Grand Budapest Hotel. If you're quirky like my... I have not even heard of that. I'll have to check it out. Yes, medicine is not perfect. I refuse to let my daughter take psych meds. They aren't the answer, especially in kids. Well, the only exception to that might be if they have those idealizations and a plan. That's the only time when I would think, well, because if you do that, there's nothing left. There's no more. So it's like when times are drastic enough, Maybe. You never know. But I don't know the situation, like I said. So I know what you've said, but they always start out with bipolar disorder. They have a pill for that. It takes a while for them to change their minds. What I actually had was CPTSD and major depression. Yeah, they'll start out with that a lot for sure. Au revoir. I usually say over and out or 10-4. Ah, glad to hear it, curious one. Salerno and the Wizard have helped me in one of my darkest times. Bless and love from an Aussie in the trees. Well, we are both happy to help. I think I said August 15th, he's coming back around. We're going to go over his Ted Bundy documentary. Oh, of course, yes, I agree. We found out much later about a previous plan. Once we found out things weren't that bad, but that's the only time I'd consider it. Yes, that's how I would see that. Hugs. A la prochaine. What does that mean, George? A la prochaine. I don't know what that means. You stumped me on that one. Ah, Quebec. Do you speak Francais? Parlez-vous Francais? Or is the guy who voiced all the Looney Tunes, that's what he wrote on his grave? That's all, folks. That's on his headstone. I'd like to hear an analysis on that guy, Koberger, who escaped the death penalty in Idaho. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I definitely would say he's got some psychopathic tendencies. Some people say he might have autism too. And I would guess they can both be. I think you can have both of those at the same time. Streetlight people. 10-4 is the good one. BK. Yeah, I got you. I got you. Oh. Hottie Wizard. I never get tired of hearing that. Savannah always knows how to treat a wizard. I mean, he definitely is. I mean, that's a very personal way to kill someone too. As with a knife like that, it's not even like a gun, but you're actually like doing it and then repeatedly. It's insane. And I don't know the backstory. He never had to give a backstory. Yeah, with Susan's strength as well. And Sinbad said that. He would have definitely done it again. Was planning as he got an Amazon to buy another. Yeah, he might have been a serial killer, but now there's no people don't last that long anymore as serial killers. They get caught more fast usually. Yeah, he's got the old dead eyes. It's hard to know with him. Could you imagine how his mother feels too? Like, how does your mother feel when you have a Koberger? And his sister was at that trial too. It's got to be embarrassing. Yeah, they're trying to figure out if that one family member was getting to him or not. It's really hard to say. I mean, his life is over. I don't know. I'm not sure what the other prisoners would do to him. I'm not sure where his prison standing would be. I think it's above a CP, but I'm not sure by how much. All of them. I mean, that's a good hypothetical question there. Would you rather have a son or daughter that kills 4 people? Or would you rather have a son or daughter who is murdered? They're both pretty bad. Yeah, that very well could be. Yeah, I do got a lot of tattoos, that's for sure. There was another woman that was asking about them too in this YouTube shorts. I explained them one day. I told her about it. I hope she watched it. Tattoos are like your diary on your skin, as Johnny Depp would say. Yeah, especially if. But here's the other argument I have with that. I also wonder if there's such a thing as free will. Some of the people that I listen to, such as Sam Harris and others, sometimes other atheists, there's big debates on is there free will? And I used to think, of course there's free will. And then I listened to their arguments and I was like, maybe I'm not so sure. Because here's what they say, the genetic component is very big. You don't choose your genes. You don't choose your parents. You don't choose your face. You don't choose how tall you're going to be. You don't choose all of these things that matter so much to make you who you are. So how much free will do you really have? Some people say not very much. And that's what the free will people will say that you don't do. You just think you do. It's an interesting debate. They'll say, nope, there's been experiments that people think they're choosing, but they'll say, if you lived your life over again, you would do everything the same. Like there's no choice in the matter, is what they would say. And personally, I don't like it. It discouraged me learning about it the first time because to me, what I didn't like about it was if you don't have free will, then you don't have any, you don't get satisfaction for your accomplishments. That's why I didn't like it. I was like, you want to have, because if there's no free will, then you didn't do anything. Like there was no accomplishment if you were already going to do it anyway. That's a different rabbit hole, though. That's a different rabbit hole to go down. So my bottom line is I try to act as if I do. And even if I don't, I try to act like I do. Because I don't like thinking that I don't. That's how I would say. So you're a tattoo virgin, Ellie. Tattoos do hurt, but I haven't felt the need. I haven't felt the desire to get new ones recently. Not to mention they're expensive. That's pretty accurate. They're a curious one. You can choose your poop. Or in World War II, they would say, if you're looking for sympathy, you can find it between syphilis and shit in the dictionary. A phoenix rising, Deb? I think that's a good idea. A tattoo version. We were all tattoo versions once. Some of us still are. That's what the people that were guarding the Nazis' Sixth Army flank of Stalingrad. So the Romanians and the Italians. I'm also a bit of a World War II history guy. So the Romanians, Bulgarians, and maybe Italians, they were guarding the flanks of the German Sixth Army. The German Sixth Army got encircled in Stalingrad, and the Russians did a pincer movement around them. And what they said was when the Russians took the Romanians and the Bulgarians and the Italians prisoners, that's where they said that syphilis and shit line. If you're looking for sympathy, you can find it between syphilis and shit in the dictionary. But I'm sure it was elsewhere besides there too. That I'm sure the Russians are probably big fans of that saying too, because the Russians, no one lost more people in World War II than Russia did. All right. Well, I'm about to close this down here. I'm running out of battery. Social battery getting lower and getting tired. But thanks all for joining me tonight. There might be another one tomorrow, maybe Monday. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I've been doing a good job with coming up with topics too. And if you can do me a favor, any other stream topics you would like to see me go over, you can comment them. Maybe on the shorts that I post, you can comment them. It'd be good to have ideas. All right, Deb, Ellie, curious one, Susan, George, Jan already left. Who's Global? Have a good one, my man. You got a curious one. I'm glad you were here. I'm glad you enjoyed the vibes. So over and out, everybody. 10-4. Peace. And Savannah, I almost forgot you. Can't forget Savannah. Still on, but I have to find people that use certain. I take a wrench snap. When it's meant to be, it will be. And you too, Donkey Kong. Thank you, dear. You're always welcome here, Deb, especially if you're going to talk about 6 Feet Under. But I appreciated all of you here tonight. It makes the time fly by. All right.